I welcome all to our Father's Day edition of our webinar series. We are delighted that you are all there participating in this virtual event. Our webinars are aimed at enlightening, educating, and creating awareness among our men and all participants everywhere. Today, we shall be discussing the topic 2023 and nation building, defining moment for the church. I want to say by starting that the idea of this webinar is actually to make everybody participate. We want to make it participatory. And thus, I'm going to enjoin all our participants to submit their questions through Facebook or what we now know as Meta. All questions will be attended to within the available time. We are glad again that you are here with us and that you be a participant at this program. To say that our country, Nigeria, is buffeted on every side by troubles is to put our national challenges mildly. Things appear falling apart and the strands are no longer holding together. The despondency, depression, and desperation in the land seem to grow daily, and many, including Christians, have lost hope in a nation that was once adjudged to be flowing with milk and honey, a land of hope, a land of opportunity, a land of plenty that has suddenly turned desolate. There is no doubt that the unfortunate turn of events is as a result of our action and inaction. The ruination of our land is a collective responsibility. And if we must get out of this morass, it must also be a collective action. This is where nation building comes in. While it must be noted that nation building is a continual phenomenon, even in developed nations. Nation building in a country like ours requires extraordinary efforts, uncommon approach, and willingness to confront and subdue giants of corruption, moral decay, lawlessness, impunity, and all sorts of vices. Again, in a nation where out-of-school children number stands at a staggering and scary 18.5 million, according to UNICEF, where the ones in school are not receiving functional education, where universities have been shut for months, a nation where the health sector is gasping for breath and being wheeled to the theater, a nation whose economy is depressed, a nation where there is so much infrastructure deficit wherever you turn. To cap it all, a nation that has descended to an obsession state of nature, where life is short, brutish, and nasty. To embark on nation building in this kind of climb calls for concerted efforts, uncanny determination, and thinking without a box. The question to ask here is, where does the church, the light and salt of the earth, stand in all this? What is the role of Christians in nation building? I must say that it must not be forgotten that there are controversies about church involvement in political governance. While some believe that the church should be fully involved in party politics by encouraging and supporting our members to vie for elective positions, some are of the opinion that party politics and open-faced participation in politics is a forbidden fruit that Christians or church members should not go near, not to talk of touching. But in spite of these different opinions among Christians, the church remains part of the polity and all policies and regulations emanating from public governance affect our operations. So the question is, should the church remain apolitical while people of all shapes and character superintend over our affairs? 2023 is around the corner, and the nation is already set agog with political activities and will shape the destiny of Nigeria and Nigerians in the next 4 or 8 years. I dare say that in the light of the trajectory of our nation at the moment, it will be foolhardy, if not suicidal, for the church to sit on the fence. Because whether we like it or not, what happens will define the future of the church. Our topic for this webinar is 2023 and nation building, defining moment for the church. And we have brought to the stage 2 dynamic and experienced Christian politicians of our denomination to speak to this topic. These men have participated in elected positions. They have won and have contributed to nation building. Therefore, it is only proper for me to give you, all our participants at this webinar, a glimpse into the persons of our speakers. In no particular order, or probably I should use alphabetical order. I bring to you Dr. Olawole Dawari George and Senator Philip Arua Gunka. Dr. Dawari George, a political economist, is a former member of the Nigerian Parliament, House of Representatives, as well as the West African ECOWAS Parliament. As a legislator, he took up radical legislative actions on human rights abuses, ethics, and privileges. He has been for many years involved in youth and community development, advocacy, and peace building, where he rose to be the chairman of the National Youth Council of Nigeria, Rivers State. He has also occupied several positions in the executive and legislative arms of government in Nigeria, influencing critical policies of government to protect the weak and the vulnerable. A development expert, Dr. Dawari has served in various agencies to advance development in the Niger Delta region of Nigeria. He was a member of the State Working Group, United Nations Fund for Population Activities, UNFPA, Advocacy Project in Rivers State, Project Officer, Governance, Niger Delta Peace and Security Secretariat, NDPASS, a member, Steering Committee, World Bank to Nigeria Employment and Empowerment Project, NUYEEP, among others. He is a past national president of the Baptist Men of Nigeria and immediate past president of the All Africa Baptist Men Fellowship. He served as the vice president of the Men's Department of the Baptist World Alliance, BWA, and is currently the president of the World Body. One thing that could be said about Dr. Dawari is that in all of his duties, he has brought dynamism to his assignment and humbly served the Lord and humanity diligently. Dr. Dawari George is a son of a Baptist clergy. Dr. Dawari, I want to welcome you to this.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Thank you, our participants.
Thank you. Our second speaker on this program is Senator Philip Arua Gunka. Senator Gunka served as a senator of the Federal Republic in the Red Chamber and the highest lawmaking body of the Federation, representing Nasarawa North Senatorial District. He is a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Economists of Nigeria, ICEN, a certified national accountant, and an honorary member of the Chartered Institute of Bankers, ACIB. He is a strong advocate of unity and progress and believes in transformation, empowerment, and true leadership. Senator Gunka studied banking and finance, economics, and international relations and strategic studies. And he is also, like Dr. George, a son of a Baptist clergy. I want to welcome Senator Gunka to this event. You are welcome, Senator Gunka. Kindly unmute yourself, please. Thank you so much. As I mentioned, we are going to welcome a number of questions, which our speakers will speak to, answer some of them, and then if you have any contribution, we are going to give some few minutes to that as well. But for us, because of our time to start right away, I want to invite our speakers to, in the next 5 minutes, to give us perspective into this topic. Dr. George, can you please start?
Thank you, moderator, and thank you, our participants. The topic for this webinar is 2023 and Nation Building, Defining Moments for the Church. You'll permit me to very quickly go through the concepts of a nation building, and a church, and then just in a minute or two, share my general understanding of the issue so that perhaps when we get to the period of a conversation, we will have a clear direction. The nation or a nation is a human geopolitical construction. A nation or a nation state is defined by specific geographical coordinates. Some of these include the assumption of political sovereignty, a constitution conferring rights on its members defined as nationals, and then of course a sense of shared identity by nationals. There are so many others. I just picked these ones for the purpose of today's conversation. In other words, nation states, as we have mentioned, have geographical, legal, linguistic, and cultural borders. Nigeria will be the nation state under review this afternoon. On the other hand, the Wikipedia review defines nation building as constructing or structuring a national identity using the power of the state. Now, I want us to know these words, the power of the state, as the key vehicle for nation building. Nation building aims basically at the unification of the people within the state so that it remains politically stable and economically viable in the long run. Nation building is also a process whereby in society of people with diverse origins, histories, languages, cultures, and religions come together within the boundaries of a sovereign state with a unified constitutional and legal dispensation, an integrated national economy, shared symbols and values as equals. They come as equals to work towards addressing divisions and injustices of the past. Now, for the church, it is simple because the church is simply a body of believers in the Lordship of Jesus Christ. It is even more personal as it also means those who have individually given their lives to Jesus and made an eternal commitment to God through Jesus Christ. Of course, the church here in this context is both spiritual, universal, and also eternal. Now, what are those current challenges in national building that we have observed in Nigeria? First and foremost, there are three key aspects. That is, first, the issues that are political in nature. That has to do with our democratic experience. you know, what we have experienced between when this country was founded and where we are today politically. There's also the issue of economic development. Where are we economically? What progress have we been able to make? And finally, there is also the issue of social homogeneity, which includes how we've been able to marry issues of our culture, issues of religion, issues of ethnicity. Have we been able to manage and bring all this together? And so the issues in our attempts at nation buildings that requires the attention of the church, even now, are, but not limited to, one, political participation, economic justice, we're talking of poverty and all that. Thirdly, accountability and transparency. Again, ethnic and religious harmony. And then finally, but not the least, the security, law, and order. Now, I want to quickly also look at the political economy of nation building. We have heard over time that everything rises and falls in leadership. And so the leadership here now, in the context when I say leadership, I'm talking about the political leadership of Nigeria. Political leadership provides inspiration and direction for the nation building process. It means, therefore, that those who control the levers of power, especially in developing countries like ours, determine the direction of the nation. They determine the economic and social trajectory of that nation. So first things first, Scripture talks about us as Christians praying for the peace of Jerusalem. That if we pray for the peace of Jerusalem, if the city prospers, we too will prosper. And so when we try to domesticate that scripture, it means we must pray for Nigeria. And that if Nigeria makes progress, we too, and indeed our mission mandate, will also prosper. It means, therefore, that the church and indeed Christians must consciously get involved in the governance of our nation to give the needed direction. Now, again, the question arises as to what will Christians give, especially when they are not political scientists, they are not in the social sciences, they are not trained specifically for this. That is where we get it wrong. Now, if you look at our doctrines, teachings, and values as Christians, you will realize that we are spiritually and ideologically equipped as a people to provide leadership that will transform the political, economic, and social space of our nation. The Bible teaches us about planning. The Bible teaches us about investments. The Bible teaches us about social security for the poor. The Bible teaches us accountability and transparency. The Bible teaches us acquisition of knowledge. Bible teaches us justice and even reward system. And so it's obvious that there is no group of persons that are better equipped to contribute to nation building than Christians. And that's why there's no aspect of our public life that is not covered by the scripture, either by the teachings of Jesus and his disciples, or even the activities and pronouncements of the biblical men of faith and the prophets of old. So when I say that in this context that we are ideologically prepared, that is what I mean. I'm saying that scripture, the teachings of Christ, has already prepared and empowered us for every good work. And so our non-participation in the affairs of our country, especially our lack of political involvement, has left a huge gap in our nation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. George. You are giving us a broad spectrum into what we are discussing today. I've been able to grasp one thing that you said, that Christians are better equipped for public governance, for participation in politics, in the affairs of our nation. And that is very, very instructive. So it means that if we do not participate or we do not get involved, we are more or less doing disservice to ourselves and to our nation. So it's not only to pray for leaders or the emergence of good leaders, but for us also to put our hands into it and do what is necessary. Of course, you are giving us a broad definition of a state, the nation state. And of course, nation building, which is a process and of course, the three dimensions of politics, economic development, and of course, social homogeneity, which has to do with how do we marry religion, ethnicity, tribal sentiment, and all sorts. How do we get these things right and then be able to contribute? I will want Senator Gunka at this juncture to please give us his perspective concerning this topic.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, and I appreciate God for this privilege given to us to talk about our nation, more especially on the nation building. As we all aware, the nation building is a process of developing national consciousness among our people, national consciousness among our people, to find the unity, see how the nationhood and mankind can integrate within themselves and find a way of developing the nation itself. In nation building, there are so many key points that we need to look into. We need to look about, when you're talking about nation building, you look about the leadership. Leadership is one of the first ingredients to look into it. When you look at leadership, we have corrupt leaders today who would discover that, yeah, we will never achieve national unity simply because some will be working towards their region, tribes, or religion. And that really cause some of the challenges we have in nation building. And in nation building, when you look at, we see, I'm talking on a practical aspect of it. When you look at what we are passing through in this country today, right from the onset, right from Trafalgar in our first republic, we discovered that the first coup d'etat that happened was as a result of corruption. The corruption that led to that coup. And when you look at it in 1966, the coup was also as a result of corruption. When we have to talk about the figures of the corruption that is, engulfing this nation today, you discover that really we are not working. We don't have the mind. We don't have the consciousness. We don't have the patriotism of seeing that we can be together. I felt, to me, I look at what happened right from the beginning was the Britain himself, when they came, they divided Nigeria into two, the Western and the Northern zone. And that is the beginning of our problem in national or in nation building. But when I look at places like South Africa, Ghana, when they were developed, when they are colonized, you discover that they hold to one key post, which was the one that they were holding to see that, yes, this is what they can do in achieving nation building. As times may goes on, I would like, because I was cut off by my network issues, so I was a bit, unstable to see how I will run up and down to see how I connect this because of the importance of this very meeting. I was even noticed more this time now. So in the nation building, when you look at it again, the Christian participation in politics. We talk about, some said politics is a dirty game. And I look at it as, in that aspect, it's all about the individuals, because politics itself is not a dirty game, but it's those that practice it, they practice dirty game. And we look at, and that is why in the Christendom, they look and said, we cannot go We cannot join politics. But if you cannot join politics, how do you correct the menace, the monsters that is affecting this nation? More especially, well, you see, in this democracy that we're practicing, you discover that majority, everything talks about majority. The number of the majority, that is the ones that we carry the votes. If Christians are not in the National Assembly, Christians are not in the State Assembly, Christians are not in the government, how do we rule? Take, for instance, there are some bills. We had just recent this bill on the I may remember it and I'll refer to it again. The majority were not the one that were supporting it, because the Christians itself were not in the majority. So every law that will affect the Christendom can pass through because we are not represented there. And at the same time, you look at whenever that our brothers in the other faith, they have the majority. And why do they have the majority? Simply because they participate in the politics. So it is very pertinent and very important that Christians should participate so that they can be part of the change, dynamic change that we are looking for in this nation, for the nation building. I'd like to pause here. Then when it's time, sitting down well, then I can bring some facts and figures. I have some figures with me that I would like to maybe share in the course of our discussions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, distinguished Senator. There's an agreement between both of you that Christians should participate in politics. That is when we can say that you want to effect corrections. You cannot stay outside, begin to criticize, begin to watch, and then expecting things to change. Soup or anything you cook can only be tasty when you add ingredients. And a major ingredient in the cooking is salt. So if the Bible calls us the salt of the world, and then everything in the world now in our polity is tasteless, who should bring the salt? I think that is what we have been able to agree upon even as we are starting, that Christians need to participate, need to be conscious, and need to be part of the of governance, electioneering, and also so that we can have a say in what is happening in our nation. Participant, please, we have opened our lines. You can please submit your questions so that our speakers can answer the questions. Please, we'll be investing the questions just now. But as you are preparing for that, I want to ask Dr. Dawari George. Dr. Dawari George has been in politics, but both of them have been in politics. And there is a notion that politics is a dirty game, just like Senator Juncker said. Dr. Dawari George, were you dirty when you went into politics?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I wasn't dirty, and I'm still not dirty, and I pray not to be dirty. Like Distinguished said when he spoke, and he was very clear about it, that politics in itself is not a dirty game. It is the practitioners of politics that make it dirty. And I've often said that you have medical doctors, engineers who engage in unethical practices also in their profession. It doesn't make the engineering profession or the medical profession a dirty one. Rather, it is those who compromise standards that make it dirty. Now, in that same light, I also want to say that the idea of having more Christians in politics is that it will also deal with aspects of this notion that politics is dirty. And that is to say that there will be some level of checks and balances. There was a day we were having primaries somewhere in my state many years ago when I first joined politics. Incidentally, the primaries were shifted to a Sunday morning. And so at the time people were running, there was chaos and all that. And while I was running, there were some members of my Sunday school class who are also passing by that place. And I know they'll be wondering what I'll be doing on a Sunday morning when I'm supposed to be in church and running. Now, the point I'm making is that when you have several Christians participating, it also creates an atmosphere that will avoid some of those things that we call dirty, and perhaps also check each other. So the consciousness that you have one of your brethren who is by you as you are doing what you are doing, it keeps you in check also. So the bottom line is politics is not dirty. It is the practitioners of politics that make it dirty.
Thank you so much. I'm glad that you are able to share that with us and that you did not practice politics in a dirty way, and you will not be dirty even as you go forward. I've received a question here, and I'm going to ask Senator to quickly speak to that question. As said, in governance, there are elective and appointive positions. Which is the most effective in influencing decisions for nation building? We've talked about nation building. So, but in governance, we have elective and appointive positions. Which of these two will you say will give us with most influential?
Well, thank you so much. Just like a system, a body itself cannot function without some parts of its body. And in politics and in our democracy, you discover that we have three arms of government. We have the executive, we have the judiciary, we have the legislators. And everyone plays its own function. So for that reason, wherever you are playing your own function, you are assigned as a judge, definitely you must exhibit fairness, because that is one of those things that is affecting this nation today. Fairness, that is, there must be justice. And when you come to the executives, yes, it's not by so doing that because you think maybe, oh, you are there, you have been appointed, you are not a politician, they appointed you, maybe you are a technocrat, and so on. No, there is one thing that God has assigned you to do. If you're a child of God, and that's why we're hinging that we should have children of God in those systems. Look at the palm, your own palm, you see the design. God has written everybody's destiny. And God says before you were created, he knows who you are. He knows the assignment he has given unto you. So when you are there, you should practice what God has told you to go and do. Not to influence the contract, not to influence other things because you want to appease your own principle, but at least let the truth be told. Legislators, if you are there in the arms of the legislator, you should ensure that the law that is necessary, you must not go behind to receive some kickback and change the law that will destroy your feet. So the nation building, and in those aspects you've asked, whether appointed a position or elective position, or they are part of the ingredients: salt, Maggi, and water that are put together to make the meal delicious. So you must have to play your part so that the meal can be delicious.
Thank you so much. I want to come back to Dr. Dauri George. If you look at the state of our nation today, everywhere you turn, whatever you think about, everything is low help. So where does a Christian come in here? What can a Christian do? They said that when the foundation is destroyed, what can the righteous do? And I've heard people say, yes, righteous can do something. They can begin to change it, but we know the equivalent task that's involved. Dr. George, will you still encourage our men? What would they do? What would they be able to do in our nation today? Just take one aspect, security, which you mentioned. You also mentioned education. We can talk about these two issues for the whole day. But just take those aspects of our lives as a nation today. What will a Christian, what will he do now?
Now, thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. The question is a very wide one. And in every suggestion we make here, every submission rather that we make here, it's also good that we identify the role Christians can play in changing the narrative of that particular submission. For instance, Senator Juncker said something here which caught my attention when he said the executive and the legislature are complementary. While that is true, and I agree completely, you will observe that the legislature has been the slowest in terms of development in Nigeria. And so the executive appears to look superior. And those who find themselves in the executive, I've also been the executive as a state member of the state executive council before I went to the legislature. So I have an understanding that the legislature almost all the time toes to the dictates of the executive. Christians who find themselves in the executive should, as expected, play the role of strengthening the other arms of government. They should not take advantage of the lapses that they inherited or they came to experience when they got to those offices, but to ensure that the checks and balances, the separation of powers, as has been spelled out, is respected by all arms of government. Christians who find themselves in positions of leadership should do that. Now, it is the same thing with your question you just asked. The country is at its lowest ebb ever. Now, of late, you will see the enthusiasm, a kind of a national consciousness that people should begin to exercise their franchise. People want to register, people want to determine who. In fact, people are no longer interested in political parties again. Everyone is beginning to think of the individual that they understand, have the pedigree and the antecedents to deliver on the expectations of the people. So the same thing in this, in nation building, especially the question you just asked, that wherever Christians find themselves, they must showcase their faith and bring their faith to bear in the actions and decisions that they take in that area of responsibility. To begin to itemize them, we may not be able to do that, now. But every aspect, whether we find ourselves in the security apparatus, we find ourselves in the executive, whether we even find ourselves in the business community, because it's not all about people who are in public service, also those who are in the private sector, and where you find yourself in the private sector, what do you do? So we're talking about our distinct Christian identity, that our identity as Christians must be brought to bear in every responsibility that we are assigned to. Forget that Mr. A is not doing his own, B is not doing his own, you do your own. So every Christian who does his own, when you put the value of all those Christians individually, wherever they are, who are doing their little bit, and you aggregate them together, you will see that there will be impact that the Christian community, that is the church, will be making to national development and nation building.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dauri George, for that. and it gladdens my heart that all of us have roles to play in building our nation, whether in politics, whether in business, or wherever we find ourselves. But you mentioned something that there's a kind of relation somehow. There's a kind of awareness going on. People want to register, people want to have their PVCs, and there's so much awareness about that. So there's a question here, and I want Senator Gunka to please respond to that. You will realize that about a week ago, there was this viral video of a reverend father or a clergy who stood in front of the church and said that unless you have your PVC, you are not going to participate in mass. So somebody is asking here, I support the effort to get every Christian and church goer registered to vote. However, so we go to the level of preventing those without PVC from attending church. Senator Gunka.
Well, I thank you so much. I think the Reverend Father did not mean that he doesn't want you to listen and hear the word of God. All he was trying to let you know how serious it is to obtain your PVC. I watched some various videos too. The husband said, I'm not going to give you money for feeding unless you produce your PVC. Those are various videos. You see, we want to know, like, as I've said it, Rhys Cabral said sometimes in the United States, he talked about how strong Christians are if it means that they are determined. Take for instance now, maybe in Baptist convention, nationwide, we could have more than 30 million people. And you go to another arms and denomination, how much votes did Buhari score in 2015? It's about 15 million votes. In I think in 2019, he scored about I think it's either 11 million or thereabout, 12 million. 12 million in that aspect. Tell me if we should, sum our total votes, we can decide the fate of this nation. And I feel it is very, very important. It is not as if maybe the Reverend Father wanted it, because he's feeling the pains right from the heart, because he's seeing what we are doing, because what is not supposed to be done is being done, simply because we refuse to exercise our franchise. If we can exercise our duly franchise, we can. Some of the Christians, they don't want to even go and stay on the line. If you go to the, maybe go to where they're registering PVC. I have that belief. If you go to the West, you see these marginaries that were brought, they will line up, and all is about, they want to determine the fate in the next generation. Let me just give us these things. If we cannot vote, a Muslim is entitled to 4 wives. He can produce, these wives can produce 4 children maybe in 1 year, and a Christian has but 1 wife. He can produce only 1 child in that 2 years. And now, if we cannot go and then vote, we are not voting now to determine who stay in our land, or to determine who can now to determine how we can control our environment. Then certainly we will not. They will take over, and that is one of the things that you see. You go there now, they say Sabo. Do you know what it means by Sabo? You go there, they say Zango. What do you mean by Zango? I'm a northerner and I know everything. So I want to tell you that in this, you can see Sabo in everywhere now. You can see Zango in everywhere now. And these are the people that are very mindful. They can vote, they can stand, and they can resist any hardship simply because they want to get a PVC. Anyway, 2, the national ID card. Now they're already, Malians are already Nigerians now, simply because the ECOWAS protocols exit entrance have allowed them that. So they come here now to dominate us. If you cannot go and vote, if you cannot go and register now, I think we should exercise and encourage even the clergymen to also, some of them said you won't take communion until you produce your, it's not as if maybe they don't want you to take communion, because if you know what the Bible says, if you know what is right and you refuse to do it, it's a sin. So are we willing to commit sin? And the Reverend Father is trying to see that at least you make us come out of that sin of doing things intentionally and then crying. You go to church to pray, but you don't want to go and cast your vote. You don't want to go and register for your PVC. What does that one mean? What is the significance of that? Can you reconcile that one? I think the Reverend Father is not wrong, and I don't think he meant, and I don't see, I've never seen where they said a Reverend Father or a bishop or a pastor or a reverend has stopped somebody from entering church. They only use this as a threat, just the way you use that one as a threat to your child. Bring a cane. Do you want to flog the child? No. Say, if you do this, I'm going to flog you. Does it mean the father is wicked? Or does it mean the father doesn't want the child to go into the house? No. They want to tell you and threaten you that this is the consequence if you do not do this.
Thank you so much, Senator Gunka. And of course, I will say that the question and the answer is coming from a son of a clergy who actually give us resonance on that, it's not any threat, but it's a way of encouraging our people to participate, because all of us, we are feeling the pains right now. I want to quickly go back to Dr. George. Somebody asked here that it's known that some people say that once you join politics, you must be a court member. You must go into one court something. Is that true?
Well, first, that is the assumption of a lot of people, even outside political circles. And unfortunately, it is part of the propaganda in our various churches that have also discouraged a lot of Christians from participating. No Christian who has actually had an encounter with Christ will get into politics, joining a cult and losing his eternity, except the person has not had an encounter with Christ. Nobody will exchange politics for heaven. If the person can do that, means that the person has not even had an encounter in the first place with Christ. Now, I say this because when we talk about Christians joining politics, oh, this Christian was in church, he was very active, but now he's, in politics, he has changed, he no longer comes to church, and is frolicking with cultists and all that, so-called cultists. The question is that person a member of the church, a churchgoer who comes to worship, or that person is someone who has had an encounter with Christ? Because nobody will have an encounter with Christ and remain the same. And so all over, even when you are in politics, it has a way of rubbing off on you. Secondly, for me and my experience, and which I've shared with so many young people, especially within the Baptist family, is that while it may be true that some people get into politics and all these things happen, just like some other professions too, where we know, even the chieftaincy institution, we hear some of the things that happen there. But it is not everybody who gets into politics that must join a cult. And being a cultist is not a prerequisite for your promotion or for your success as a politician. And I can say that confidently. I can say it anywhere, that even in my modest rise in politics, nobody has ever even approached me or even suggested to me to join a cult. And so for me, when I speak out of experience. Some may have had experience where they have actually been, approached, or, things like that are suggested to them. I have never been approached. And it has never been a determinant for the position I hold. But the church believes this so much that people don't get involved. Now, I'll give you an example. for those of us who maybe before we got into politics, most every time you're in church, every night vigil, you are there, you are in the band, you are singing, you are worshiping and all that. God answers your prayer. The first people to doubt that God did this for you is the members of the church. That's why this, idea of cultism thrives in the church. Church members do not believe that their prayers are answered by God, especially in the political scene. They believe it can happen in business. Even in business, sometimes they say you must have done something shady. If not, how can you just have this kind of this thing? But the economy of Samaria was changed in 24 hours. Within 24 hours, the economy of Samaria changed by the word of a prophet. So how come you pray for someone in church and the person goes out and something happens and it is rapid? Rather than giving praise to God, people credit it to the devil. That has influenced so many people who are willing, but who think, look, for whatever, I cannot, exchange my eternity because I want to be in politics or because I want to contribute to nation building. In any case, let me also say this. If you get into politics and from day one, you state who you are. In other words, you don't hide the fact that you are a child of God. I doubt if anybody will have the courage to come and even suggest that to you. If they begin to suggest that to you, then you should also be worried. It means that there's something about you that is also perhaps, not very clear to them, and they don't see you as a child of God. I've not seen anybody come to tell me that, and I'm waiting for that kind of opportunity so that if I'm speaking again, maybe perhaps I'll be able to tell you this was my experience. But for now, I don't think you need to be a cultist for you to rise in politics, and that the church must begin to erase that notion and stop using that to discourage Christians from getting involved. Okay, they are cultists. Let all of us go there and join with the cult of our church. Let us go there. Yes, let us go there with the teachings of our own cult, which is the church, and see whether those people will survive us.
Thank you so much. You spoke so passionately about this. And of course, you are talking about your experience. Before I go back to Senator, I want you to answer this question. Well, it's true, you don't cult a cult, you're not a cult member or whatever, but one of the things that scares people away from politics in Nigeria is the issue of thuggery and violence. Again, in the course of the week, we saw what happened in Ekiti State. As they are preparing for the election that is taking place right now, there were thugs all over the place, kidnapping, maiming, and all kinds of things, and we are confessions. So, sir, what will you say about thuggery and violence that scares people away? Decent people, call cool people, decent people. Does it not happen in politics?
All right, Mr. Moderator. First, in answering this question, maybe perhaps I should also say here that while there is a general form of participation in politics, which is, activities of social, civic associations, neighborhood groups, social movements, advocacy groups, and all that, the general form, engaging in demonstration and all that. Now, the specific form of participation is the one that we're addressing, which is the participation in elections. And when you participate in elections, which means you are a full, you are an active participant in the political process, not the passive one that like those who are into advocacy and all that. The question arises, and that is where we must understand this question you are asking if we want to get a clearer picture. First, I do not think that anyone goes into politics as a career, that's a child of God. I've always believed, and I hold this view very strongly, that politics and participation in the public space is actually a calling. That just like God has called pastors to missions, to evangelism, and to pastoral duties, that's how God calls men and women to politics. That's my own personal take, because all through scriptures, when God wants to bring about change in a nation, he raises men. And that's why you have people like Daniel, you have people like David, you have people, so many, Deborah and all these people. In that season, when God wanted to bring about change, he actually called men for that assignment. So I don't think our generation will be different. if you don't have a call and you go into politics, this issue of thuggery and violence will become an issue you'll be struggling to contend with. If there is a call, first and foremost, the second thing that will go with the call is that there is a corresponding grace that accompanies the call. If God calls you into a thing, he equips you for that thing. If God sends you on an errand, he gives you transport money for the transport to pay to that place. God does not call us in a vacuum. God does not call us without equipping us. So any Christian who knows that God has called him to it, and the call also comes with corresponding grace to go with it, will know that whenever issues of violence and all this comes, God has a way of one, shielding the person and also taking the person away from where the person himself will put his hands into those things. We have seen situations where, we have been at the center of, when I mean attack, violent, attack for 3 hours, the same thing that will leave people dead in maybe 5-10 minutes. We were under attack, under siege for 3 hours. We came out with no scratch on anyone. Now, that is the authenticity. That is the evidence of the fact that we are not there on our own, but God has called us to it. So those who are afraid of it, they should question whether God has called them. A pastor who accepts to go into deliverance ministry also knows what comes, the dangers of being in deliverance ministry. It is the same thing, the same demons you are attacking and praying against, they will come after you. Will you say because of that you are going to abdicate the call of God for your life as a deliverance minister? You will not. So for some of us, we have also made up our mind. God has called us into politics. So we also understand the things that will come with our involvement, and that there is also grace that God will provide for us to be able to rise above it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I wish I can come to politics so that you can train me, so that I will also be part of it. Thank you. I have torrents of questions here, but I'm trying to sift through and then be able to, because of within the available time that we have. Senator Gwinka, there's a question here, and I thank God that both of you have served in the two chambers. You are a distinguished senator. Dr. George has been in the House of Representatives. Somebody said here, is this thing that we are practicing, this presidential thing that we are practicing, is it not too expensive? Is it not why we have so much waste of resources? Why don't we collapse these two chambers into one? Senator, can you give us some insights to that question?
Well, thank you very much, moderator. I don't think it's much expensive, but to me, the way I look at it is the concept that is not being followed that made it very, very much expensive. Because there are many things that are happening. When you go to the Senate, there are many things, and you go to the National Assembly, let me call it for general. You go to the General Assembly, there's check and balance, The check and balance is that this law we are making, it is fragmented. It is fragmented into step-down units. For instance, now we have the legislators in the federal and the Senate in the upper chamber, and we have the legislators in the national, in the greenhouse. That is how it happens, and we still have the segment of it in the State House of Assembly, and we still take it back down to the local government, where we have councillors and others, right? And you see, it is the practice, because we're not doing the right thing maybe in the National Assembly, and that's why things are happening. I can't defend them because I have been there, and I know George will not defend also because he knows what actually is being practiced there. Because you see, you talk about the executive before. Now, you are looking at a situation where a bill is brought simply because you want to get some maybe kickback. The Senate president or the speaker might go deep down in the negotiating with the executive, that is the presidency. And then what they need to do is, these things had come. When you take something, just like somebody taking cola in your mouth, you cannot talk. And many of them, this is what is happening. This presidential system of government, if you look at it, it is being practiced in most part of the world. So I don't think that is very, very much expensive. And sir, I wanted to make a comment, serve as an addendum to what my brother colleague has said, Honorable Dawari. When you're talking of people in politics, whether they should join cultists or not cultists, I know you selected some of us so that we can serve as a light to those children of pastors. My father was a pastor in a rural area that he was not paid salary even a year. And yet God compensated him and said, okay, this is the time I'm going to do this for you. I never had Godfather, and I don't have one. That is the beginning of this cultism. I don't have Godfather. I have but God the Father. And he has helped me throughout. I served in the State Assembly for good 8 years. And there is nothing that they could not offer me there. I was the chairman of Finance and Appropriation. And when I uncovered so many fraud, 8 assassins were sent to my house with AK-47. But God, in his infinite mercy, because I was called by him, he defended and protected me. And I left House of Assembly straight to the Senate. And in that period, I was in 2015 when I was vying for the Senate. 5 former deputy governors, they gang up against me. He said that I said I don't have Godfather. They must prove to me that I must have to respect Godfatherism. And I told them I'm not. God, in his own infinite mercy, gave me victory, and they were ashamed of themselves. So they will never be tired, and we too are not tired because we know the God we are serving. I'm saying this thing because I want to encourage the sons and daughters of the clergy or the pastors, the stewards in the house of God, in the vineyard of God. Many of them, they feel because you are a son of a pastor, you will not make it. But today, I am so glad that the 2 of us were brought up in that background. And I know maybe Dr. Dawari will look at it and say, oh, he knows how his father suffered. Yes, it is not, when you are called into the vineyard of God, it's not something very easy. A church member will see you taking tea that someone has provided for you. You'll be envying and say, this pastor is enjoying. Let us see how we can deal with him. They will not, and that's how they happen. It's the same way when we look at the issues in the politics. I don't think we must have to join this thing. Dr. Dawari said no one has approached him. Jesus was approached. He was clean, but he was, the devil, because of his craftiness, went and tempted him. What about Job? Job was a highly integrity man. And if he was still, the devil went down there and God was asking, and he tempted there. He said, is it not because of this? So I know most of us have been tempted. Oh, you come and join us or else. I can tell you so many scenarios that children of God in Senate, we were 109. But do you know, sir, in our fellowship, we do fellowship only once in a week, Wednesdays. But do you know that at times, for us to even reach 15 is another thing? Simply because this is what they think, this is what they want, and it just happened. But it will come and bounce back. We have Christians that can sponsor most of the the church members to go into politics. We must not go and take it from someone. If you allow your children to go outside, that's why a father will always feed his children at home, let them be fed, so that they will never look on other people's food outside. It is through that they will be initiated. So if the church members, we're talking about that, we have churches that are very buoyant. We have choose one person and then sponsor him. And then you can now control that person and say, okay, this person, this is what we want. You have done it, go and produce another one. But that is not practice in the Christian.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you so much, Senator.
Thank you.
I wish we have the whole day to talk about this topic. I said I have a number of questions here, but from your answers and the responses of Dr. George, some of the questions have been answered. And I'm sure that the participants who sent in these questions will be satisfied with what you have given because of our time. When you mentioned, that Senator, when you mentioned the fact that you don't have a godfather, but that you have God the Father, I saw Dr. Dawari smiling and laughing. Perhaps Dr. Dawari has a godfather, but I'm sure from what he has said, he doesn't have one. I want to ask you, Dr. Dawari, why is 2023 a defining moment for Christians, for the church?
All right, before I take that, let me just quickly react to what my senior colleague has just shared. First, I've not been approached, so probably God knows what will happen if I'm approached, so he has shielded me. That's the grace I'm talking about. I'm enjoying that grace that I've not been approached. No need to tempt me if he's not sure about me, but I'm sure of myself. And then he also made mention about the National Assembly Fellowship. It's the same challenge why I said those who have had encounter with Christ and those who go to church. If you come to the House of Reps, we're about 360 members, but our own fellowship is on Thursdays, theirs is on Wednesday, and then sometimes we have a joint fellowship. But that Thursday fellowship, you can't find more than 20 to 25 members out of the 360. Now, the point is that with that number, how can these 25 people influence the outcome of plenary that 360 people are sitting over? That is the challenge. We don't have the numbers. Now, again, that also stems from the fact that Christians are not involved in party politics. Now we are talking about PVC. I'm happy, I'm glad, I'm excited that there is this new consciousness. And that's the question you asked, defining moments. But there are still some gaps. Those gaps are the fact that because we are not involved in the activities of political parties, all Christians are doing is wait for election day to vote. Whatever we do on election day is an affirmation of what has already been done on our behalf by the various political parties. The process starts with our involvement at the level of the political parties, where we need to influence the emergence of candidates from those parties. So when they come for election, you have several Christians running for the same office, and we're picking the best among the lot. But when you allow the system to throw up candidates that are not what Christians expect, what you do is that you just come to pick what you consider the best out of the lot that the political parties have already determined for you. And so I call that election day voting by Christians, affirmation rather than election, affirmation. The election has been done by the political parties. You are not there, you did not participate, you didn't sponsor anyone there. Again, talking about Godfather, I just need to address it. I don't have a Godfather. I laughed because it has always been one of the recurring issues when you discuss politics in the church. I don't have a Godfather, but I have political mentors. You need people in politics to also help you to grow. You don't come and exist in a vacuum or in a void. No, you need people who will also guide you, people who speak for you. Yes, there were people. Nehemiah was in the palace. That's why he was able to do what he did. You must have people who are positioned in certain places who will speak for you and be able to drive, your own agenda, forward. And again, Senator said something about funding in passing, because I'm just raising those critical issues that we often ignore. If a godfather is the one who sponsors somebody and leads him to do and maybe pay back, patronage and all that, what stops people, believers in the church, from becoming those godfathers? Why are they not sponsoring Christians who are ready to go into politics? We're not talking about church posts. We're talking about church people, members who are well-to-do, and even those who are not well-to-do, in the spirit of crowdfunding, with the little and little each person brings, so that the church cannot just own the person, but the church will make that person accountable to the values and expectations of the church. But that is not happening. So when you have unbelievers sponsoring Christians into office, unbelievers being the ones who are introducing Christians and opening doors for them, doors of opportunities, and then when they finish, they will leave the piper and then come back to those who are not part of the process. And then those are the people who determine for them what they will do. We are the ones positioning them in that, very bad situation. So talking about your question is a straightforward thing. Good, the consciousness, the defining moment is that our country, everything appears to have collapsed. As we speak today, our economy is in bad shape. The security challenges are such that some churches can no longer hold evening programs again. Whether you like it or not, the things that are happening in the public space is beginning to have an impact, negative impact on the church and its mission. And so if the church will be able to fulfill God's purpose for the church, means that the church must also begin to take more than a passing interest in what happens in this in the secular space. When I talked about the power of the state in my introductory statement, when I said using the power of the state, is that no matter what you do as a private citizen, the man who is in charge and controls state power will be able to achieve more and will be able to make more impact than what you will do as a private citizen. And so for me, as the defining moment of the church is that for us to be able to deal with the political issues, improve on our democracy, for us to be able to deal with the economic issues, touch our economy, deal with poverty and joblessness, unemployment, and all those things that are plaguing us, to deal with religious issues, ethnic distrust, and all that is happening. The church must understand that if this narrative must change, it means that in 2023, we must come and assume the position of leadership so that we can drive, the process of nation building. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. George, and a distinguished senator. We have spoken to this topic today, and I'm sure that our participants are actually would have been blessed and have learned one or two things from our contributions. And I believe also that many of them will know that it's not only getting your PVCs and voting, because when you vote on that day, you are validating what has been decided, just like Dr. Dowry's George said. But you have to be involved. Somebody came to our church at a time and he said, okay, how many of you here have your PVC? Quite a number. Then he said, okay, how many of you belong to political parties? Some hands again. Said, are you a card carrying member? Because when they are selecting that chairman or somebody to vie for that position, if you are not there, you cannot influence anything. So when it is just to vote, we just validate what they have done. We are posting home, we are rounding up anytime from now. And a number of questions here, but I want to ask Senator to give us what I would call a pattern shot. But in that pattern shot, I want him to take into consideration, we are talking about Nigeria. And today we are talking about Christians participating, or the church getting involved. But in our political space today, we are talking about Muslim ticket and a number of other things. Can you, as you round off today, please let us have your take on that? If that happens, what will a Christian do?
Well, thank you. I think I'm not in support of a Muslim ticket, because I look at it as if everything that comes our way, we always swallow it. We're human beings. We must resist so many things. And if you look at, just like I've said, they practice that one as a litmus test in Kaduna. And you see, the Southern Kaduna today are being molested simply because if it is Muslim ticket, when they go for their executive council meeting, who represent the body of Christ? Nobody. Because the decision, and that is one thing that happened, I think far back during 1994, thereabout. Well, this man sat down and he registered Nigeria into OIC without anyone challenging them. These are issues. Any law that has been made, and when you want to challenge, they will use the law to judge you. So I am not in support of the Muslim ticket. Just like I've made some analysis either to now, that when you calculate our votes, we're far back majority. But I was so disappointed by some of our men that we said, oh, I don't see anything that is all about the Muslim ticket. This is what it is. You can give it to them and nothing happened. When they take decision, what do? You can't react against it because it is by law. So I feel there's alternative we could do. Let's come out in mass to prove. More especially this, I think we should be able to field someone that can also take a challenge and say that this is what we are doing. Take for instance now, I've told them earlier on, you have big churches and the Muslim ticket, one day they will say, okay, there's not going to be church worship again. This is something that happened in Turkey. By gradual, Turkey is zero level of Christian now. And if we allow it in Nigeria, Nigeria is their target. So, sir, I feel the viewers, we should, when our clergymen talk, we should listen to them. You see, they have one body that wants, he said, this is what should happen. They follow it. But we don't have that kind of leadership. They say Sultan have said this now, nobody challenges it. And today you can see even a pastor, Reverend Father, or fathers in the Lord will say something, you'll be arguing with them. Then where do you expect the instruction should come in? Because we don't respect them. They respect their own. Whether it's 10 people contesting for one position and the man said, this is what we want, they give him. And that person take it and they know how to compensate themselves. But ourselves, we prefer to destroy ourselves to the latter end, to the zero level, whereby they will say, okay, we've all lost it. I can give you the instance of Nasarawa State. We're a majority in Nasarawa State, but because selfishness has, robbed us of the governorship of the state all this while. If not for me, let us destroy it. They have done that. So I feel Muslim ticket is not healthy for the Christians.
Thank you so much. That was distinguished Senator Philip Arua Gunka, who has been one of our speakers at this webinar. We have really gained from your experience and your perspectives and insight into what is happening in our nation. I go back to Dr. Dawari George, and he also giving us his pattern shots. I want him to pay attention to these issues and wrap everything together for us. There's so much financial recklessness involved in primary election and campaign. How do we, what strategy can we use to curb this, or what can be done? I also want you to look at the fact that looking at the situation of things at the presidential level and linking it to call to politics, does that mean no one has been genuinely called to occupy the position of president? That's a very interesting question. So I want you to look at that so that we can, then you may also take this. There many of our clergy today will not allow anyone in politics to hold a post in the church, all in the name of being born again. Is there a way out? So these questions keep on coming, but we have to wrap up, and then so that we can.
What's the last question again?
The last question says
What's
that.
The last question again?
The last question.
Yes.
Dr. George. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Talked about the fact that many of our clergies today will not allow anyone in politics to hold a post in the church, all in the name of being born again. Is there a way out of this? In 2 minutes, I want you to respond to these posers. Thank you.
Okay. I'll take from the last question. I'll take from the last question. I don't think that is correct. No Baptist ministers. I was in the House of Reps and I was the national president of the MMU. And so I cannot say that our clergy in the Baptist Church does that. I can speak for them because I know that even in the convention EC, then we have people who are politicians and who are occupying positions in the public space. I think as Baptists, we are not doing badly in that area. Again, the issue of call to politics and the way the presidential, our presidents and all that have been carrying on. There are two different things. The call I talked about is call to politics, not call to a particular office or all that. That is something that I won't be able to discuss because I'm not there when God spoke to the person to go and run for that office or the other. But one thing I do know is that if God genuinely calls you and you follow the dictates, his prescription for that assignment, you cannot come out as a failure. And if you fail, then there are a lot of questions that will need to be asked because all through the Old Testament, the kings that God called, at every turn, the ones that succeeded, we saw that they followed exactly what God told them to do. The ones that failed also, we know Scripture tells us he did what was wrong in the sight of God. He did this and he did that, and that's why it happened that way. So that perhaps can account for why some people get into office, even though they are called, ordained by God, yet they still fail and are not able to deliver because they did not follow God's prescription. And then the issue of financial recklessness in primaries and all that, it's even scandalous that the key political parties, at least the main political parties in Nigeria, will be charging the kind of amount they charge for forms and all that. Yes, the argument is that with money, in all unserious people will be asked to withdraw. Incidentally, there are so many people who can't afford 5 million. You're asking them to bring.
Oh, sorry, we lost virtually Dr. Dawari George. I'm sure he will come back. But again, we are just wrapping up to, round off this session today. Dr. Dawari George, you are back. You are making your point. Yeah, but technology actually came in the way. Please continue, sir. Unmute yourself, sir. You are still, okay, yes.
Yeah, it's part of the problems we're encountering in nation building. We have still not gotten this very right. But as a passing shot, let me say this with all sense of responsibility, that the church must, as a matter of urgency, develop a deliberate and intentional discipleship training program for marketplace apostles. If the church wants Christians to go out to the public space to make an impact, just like we have the various discipleship lessons, there is need for the church to also develop a literature, training programs, discipleship programs, so that those who are interested in politics will also be exposed to certain rudiments and the things, challenges that they are likely to face in the political space. So when the church has trained and developed these people and pushed them into the public space, they will do far better than those who are unprepared and will just go there and wait for the system to throw up opportunities or circumstances for them to deal with. Secondly, scripture says we are the salt of the earth and we are the light of the world. Salt gives essence, it gives taste, like you said in your opening remarks, and light provides illumination, it provides direction. So it means that once Christians who are supposed to be light and salt are absent in the political space, we will have challenges. Our country is where we are today because those that God has called and given the assignment both to be salt and light in the public space, unfortunately, are not there to provide that direction, to provide that taste, to provide that essence. They have abdicated their responsibility, and that's why we are where we are. And again, when we have our Christians who join, Christians in the church who join politics, I expect that the church should not begin to treat them as pariahs. The church should do everything to bring them close and get them involved in the church. Unfortunately, no matter how busy you are in political activities, if your primary allegiance is to Christ and his mission, there is no reason why you should be so busy as a politician that you don't have time for the church. So it is we, the church, that actually, in our actions, indulge people who are in public service by thinking and excusing them that because they're in public service, they can't attend church programs, they can't participate in church programs and all that, instead of bringing them close. I think the church should do that rather than criticizing them and possibly even naming them as cultists because they are making progress based on the prayers of the church. And then finally, it's time for the church to rise and fill the gap and fulfill God's purpose for his world and his creation. Thank you very much.
The moderator, you have to unmute yourself. No? Yeah.
So, I was carried away by what Dr. Dari was saying. So, it is time for the church to rise. There's no doubt about that. And this is the time. And I'm so pleased that both of you that were brought to this program, the experienced politicians, you have also won elections and you have participated in nation building. And one thing that Dr. George said, that the church now needs to develop even literature. The church needs to train. So in what direction should we look? If we have people like you, can you spearhead that for the church? Can you begin to train and mentor? Just as Dr. George said, he has mentors, not godfathers. Can we begin to have training? I know the big and active involvement of Dr. George when it comes to Royal Ambassadors of Nigeria. That's like foot soldiers. Can we begin to have education, awareness, literature, production to actually get our people involved in politics? As I said, a number of things are still here, but we cannot continue ad infinitum. But to thank Dr. Dari George and to thank our distinguished Senator, Philip Arua Gunka, for the honor you have done us as men of the Nigeria Baptist Convention to honor our invitation and to come forward to share your experience and also to give us reasons why the church cannot remain apolitical, cannot begin to look from the side, but rather to be involved in what we are doing. We have our national president in, and he will also extend his appreciation and greetings to us today. Dr. Soya Sawu is here, and in also contributing and thanking our men of our denomination. They are leading lights in our denomination. There's no doubt about that. I want to also to say something because they are children of clergy. Dr. Soya Sawu, you are also a clergy. So, and I learned there that we have had revelations here and there from men of God, like Dr. Soya Sawu, on who will emerge as president. And can we still rely on some of those prophecies when they have never come true? Just as you give us your opening remarks. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Additional, for this great coordination of the webinar session. I want to, on behalf of the executive committee and the entire leadership of the MMU of Nigeria, and indeed all Baptist men, appreciate our guest speakers, distinguished Senator Kuka, and our global president, Honorable Dr. Dawari George, for doing justice to this topic. It could not have been better. We are really deeply grateful. If for nothing, I believe that all those who have listened in are charged up to know that we all have a responsibility come 2023 as the Church of God. I was just looking at the results of previous elections, and I discovered that in most of the states, the winners for the governorship elections had between 100,000 and 300,000 votes. And I wonder which state in Nigeria where we don't have up to 300,000 Baptist members. I really wonder. So that tells me that if Baptist people alone mobilize, we can install several governors in 2023. That's the clear truth. Professor Soludo won the Anambra election with just a little less than 150,000 votes. So what that tells us is that if the Baptist Church alone should mobilize her members, then we will be installing the governors of the different states of Nigeria. Because there is no state in Nigeria where we don't have much more than 150,000 Baptist adults. So that tells us that we really have the work to do. And I want to use this opportunity to encourage every Baptist adult that is 18 years and above to please go and get your PVC. Our distinguished senator and Honorable Dr. George did not tell us if they are contesting for any positions in 2023. I will not want to put them on the spot. But should their names come up, Baptist people, I encourage you to deliver them by your vote. Should their names come up in 2023 elections, they have not told us, and I'm not going to put them on the spot like I said. But should their names come up, Baptist people alone can deliver them. And so I'm encouraging everyone, please let us do the needful. About prophecies, well, we know that there's a place for prophecy, and prophecies are good. Unfortunately, INEC will not be counting prophecies. INEC will be counting votes. So if you have a prophecy, back it up with action. Faith without works is dead. If we have prophecies and we stay back in the church and do not come out to vote, unfortunately, those prophecies may not come out as we have perceived them. So when we hear prophecies, then it calls us to action, to go out and exercise our franchise. Finally, let me seize this great opportunity to call on all our Baptist men across the country and beyond. We have a date, August 16 to 19. All roads lead to the ancient city of Benin City in Edo State. As you can see me, I'm dressed in the Edo 2022 t-shirts. I'm already excited about what will happen in Edo 2022. I'm expecting distinguished Senator Gunka to be with us. I'm expecting Honorable Dr. Daware George to be with us 16th to 19th, and whatever questions they are not able to answer here because of time, I'm sure we'll have enough time in Benin City to address other issues. So please, all Baptist men, all roads lead to Edo City, the Benin City, the Edo State capital, and we will have a wonderful time in the 2022 Annual Congress. Finally, I want to say Happy Father's Day to all our fathers. Happy Father's Day to our convention president. Happy Father's Day to our global leaders. Happy Father's Day to our continental leaders. Happy Father's Day to all our Baptist men across Nigeria. God bless you all. Thank you, Deacon Additional, for the time and for a wonderful job. God bless you all, sirs.
Thank you so much, National President. Thank you so much for wishing us a successful Father's Day program tomorrow. Just to buttress the fact that this webinar was actually planned to coincide with that Father's Day. And if you have seen the social media, you will have seen a lot about even politics being brought into it. Some of us who understand, who speak Yoruba, say, our local, this is our turn to have this at this time. Thank you so much. Thank you, Senator, our distinguished Senator. Thank you, Dr. Dawari George. Thank you, all our participants. Thank you, all our national officers and NEC members. And thank you, everyone that has taken his time to be able to be part of this. Thank you, our national president, again, for giving the opportunity to be able to do this year after year. May the Lord Almighty continue to be with the Baptist men, Baptist women, Baptist children, who will actually elect the next set of leaders in our nation. Thank you until we meet again, probably in November and then next year. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you. Happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day, sir.
Happy Father's Day. God
Happy
bless
Father's
all
Day,
of
sir.
us.
Senator.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody know now you there. I serve a living God, oh, even the devil know. Say not true. I serve a living God, oh, everybody know. Now you there know. Now you there know. I serve a living God, oh, even the devil know. Say not true. I serve a living God, everybody know. Now you there know. Now you there know. I serve a living God, even say not true. I serve a living God, oh, everybody.
Because what is not supposed to be done is being done.
I serve a living God, oh, even the devil knows, say not true. I serve a living God, oh, everybody know. Now you there, now you there. I serve a living God, oh, even the devil know, say not true. I serve a living God, oh, everybody know. Now you there, now you there. I serve a living God, oh, even the devil know, say not true. I serve a living